This is Stephen Frew. Hi, how are you? I'm glad you're listening to this. We're doing a number of podcasts and also some written stuff and also some one-night workshops, which will eventually be some weekend workshops for couples, on the topic of scaffolding your marriage, which really you could say is a way of reimagining what you think and believe and how you talk about marriage. I'm totally all in on longevity and intimate connection, longevity with my partner. Now, I have in me a history, a family. You know, Freud said a long time ago, when two people marry, 6 people get into bed. What he meant was the 4 parents also get into bed. My parents certainly have been in my bed without their knowing it, of course. Their depression, the way they solved problems, their lack of information, their impoverished childhood, not evilly, not bad, but I didn't get much in that growing up, much support for renewing my imagination when it comes to relationships. I got a lot of performative demands. I got a lot of do the right thing. They were conservative Christian people, so I got a lot of that. Not much be creative, think outside the box, take chances, risk being open, risk telling the truth, risk inviting the truth, risk doing something unusual and different with your honey. I didn't get much of that at all, probably very little at all. Okay? So this series, and what we're going to continue to do, is talk about the rebirth of the imagination, and we're calling it scaffolding your marriage. I said there is love's origin. That's called falling in love. That's also called the hormone cocktail. That's also called a cosmic event. That's when this happened. You and her, or you and him, happened. It was like the Big Bang in the universe. You happened. You had no control over that, really. It happened. And then you claimed it and said, let's do something with this rush, with these expansive images that we have now, with the delight we experience with each other. Let's do something with this. Okay, you both said. And that produced or led into what we call the elementary phase, establishing your kingdom, you know, your 401ks, your residents, maybe children, maybe not, the relationships with the extended family, the defining of this marriage and this partnership and what that's going to look like in your friendships, in your extended family, in your community, in your neighborhood, whatever you want to say. That goes into extend the elementary phase, because you're establishing. You're using about 75% of your energy around that. Finding the right place, finding the right furniture, finding the right 401k, finding the right career, finding, doing, saving for vacations. All of that stuff is practical and real, but it doesn't leave much energy for creativity in intimacy. And without creativity in intimacy, you, of course, tend to go toward senility in intimacy. Ever sit in a restaurant, notice a couple sitting across to you by the window, and they're both looking out the window, and neither one of them is saying anything? That's called senility in relationship. They don't know what to say. They're 45, 50, and their conversations have run out. Or couples that come to my office, and they say, we haven't had sex in 5 years. Or when we go out to dinner, we don't really know what to say. In fact, some people will say, you know, Stephen, I should have canceled today. Why? Well, because I didn't have anything really to talk about. I go, wow, could that be true? It's not true. You have plenty to talk about. You don't know how to get to it. You don't know how to open it. You don't know how to open that can of worms and say, I've been unhappy, or I've been longing for, or I desire this, or I've always wanted to play the piano, or I'm not an accountant anymore, I want to write my first novel. Whatever it is, you have the challenge of reimagining your life. And what happens during elementary phase is you're too busy to do that. But in midlife, you start asking the right questions, and they have to be honored, not through divorce, but through holding a space between the two of you that says, we've got a lot of new learning to do, and it's going to be scary, and it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a lot of stuff. We might need a coach to do it, or a therapist, but we have a lot to do, so let's do it. That leads to this transformational. And why I call it transformational is that you take this content of your questions. Simon Sinek says, know your why. It's a beautiful little idea, powerful idea he has, not little. That's a powerful idea he has, know your why, and it's in transitional that you're looking at your why. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why are we married? Why are we saving money? Why are we living in Southern California? Why are we? That leads to transformational, and transformational is the beginning of decision making. Now, in the hero's journey literature, I mentioned in an earlier podcast, you think of hero's journey like you think of Bilbo Baggins in Tolkien, or you think of Luke Skywalker, or you think of the Odyssey, and there's a lot of illustrations for the hero with 1,000 faces. In the hero's journey, what happens is there's a thing called the call to adventure. Now, you could be 40, you could be 50, 60, 70, or 80. I don't care what you are. Grandma Moses started painting in her mid to late 60s, I believe. So change is always waiting for you at the door, knocking on the door. Let's do something different. Let's reinvent our lives. Let's blow it all up and start over. That's transformational. Now, I wanted to write that novel for 30 years, and I've been doing other people's tax breaks, tax forms, and now I'm going to say, I'm going to start writing my novel. I may only give 3 hours a week to it, or 2, or 1, but that doesn't matter. What matters is the decision and the claiming of it to jump all in to this small speck in your imagination that has been calling to you all along, but you haven't been giving it any attention, and now you are. Transformational, going from a practiced and well-known way of being into an entirely new way of being, a way that you're not familiar, that's family-based, you're not familiar with, but that holds the excitement and the promise of doing something different with your partner, reimagining what your love is about. This is Stephen Frew. Thanks for listening.